In today's episode, I wanted to talk about the skills you need truly to succeed as an online entrepreneur. But trust me, if you don't master these skills, you are gonna have a hard time building your online business or coaching practice. And so with that, let's get into it. Hey, Courtney Sanders here. Welcome back to my podcast. If you are listening to this on iTunes and Spotify, you can come on over on YouTube where you can see my crazy facial expressions and my new haircut, which I am super excited about. But in today's episode, I wanted to talk about the skills you need truly to succeed as an online entrepreneur. And actually went back and forth over the topic of this particular podcast, or rather the title, because I was going to title this Every Non-Coaching Skills That Every Coach Needs, right? Because I think particularly in the coaching industry, and as you know, I'm a certified life and business coach, there's a lot of focus on coaching skills, which are very, very important. But I find that a lot of coaches fail, not because necessarily that their coaching skills aren't up to par, but that their business skills aren't up to par. So I was gonna title this podcast episode that, but then I realized that the tips that I'm gonna share in here and really the skills that you need are applicable to any type of entrepreneur. And I know I have listeners that, are interested in all types of businesses that they want to build. Not everybody's a coach. Some people are consultants. Some people are just industry experts or service providers. And some people even have product-based businesses. So regardless of where you fit on the entrepreneurial spectrum, this is going to be really beneficial for you. But particularly, right, because I have a soft spot for my coaches. Again, if you're an aspiring life coach, business coach, health coach, executive coach, whatever, you want to be a coach, consultant, or industry expert, I get it. You are an expert in your field and you know so much about your subject matter. But trust me, if you don't master these skills, you are going to have a hard time building your online business or coaching practice. And so with that, let's get into it. All right, the first skill that you really need to master, and this should be no surprise, is marketing. Yes. And I also wanted to put this one first because I think this will really speak to one of the biggest questions that I get, which is, do you have to be an extrovert in order to, one, be successful in promoting yourself as a coach, but do you need to be an extrovert in order to be a successful entrepreneur in general? And I always say no, right? I feel like people don't believe me because they're like, oh, Courtney, you're an extrovert and you enjoy putting yourself out there. Yes, I do, but I think people have it maybe mistaken that they think they need to be an extrovert when in reality, they do need to master the skill of marketing. And so yes, I recognize that if you are an extroverted person, then a lot of the things that you'll need to do in order to market yourself and market your business are going to come naturally, right? So that will be an advantage to you. But I know plenty of introverted entrepreneurs who are exceptional at what they do and they have very, very successful businesses, and they just made a commitment that they were going to master marketing, even though they personally are not extroverted. They said, that's okay. I'm going to learn these different components within marketing and I'm going to make sure that I do them in order to promote my business. Okay, so I know marketing can be super broad and you're probably wondering, okay, what exactly within marketing do I need to master as a skill? And there are a few things that you need to master. So the first part of marketing that is basically required if you want to be a successful coach, consultant, expert, or any type of entrepreneur in general, even a product-based entrepreneur, and that is the skill of storytelling. Yes, I know we don't think of storytelling as having to do with marketing, but storytelling, I believe, is one of the oldest forms of marketing. And really, it's one of the first forms of marketing that I discovered, and I didn't even realize that it was marketing. It was just something that I've always been good at and something that I've been very passionate about. I love sharing my story or just telling stories in general to my friends about what happened, or can you believe this happened? Even to this day, my husband says I'm very dramatic. He's like, why are you so dramatic? But it's so funny. He's like, everyone in your family is so dramatic, right? Your mom is dramatic, your sister is dramatic. And we were like, what are you talking about? So for years, we were married for years, and I was like, why do you keep calling us dramatic? Is this an insult? What do you mean? And I later found out that he meant that we, again, have these big stories that we like to tell, and we get into the details, and we make faces and change our voices and play different roles and all of that, right? So, maybe I got it honest in terms of storytelling, but in the beginning, I didn't know much about marketing, and that's all I could do was essentially share my story. And so if you are familiar with my story and you've been on, this channel or this podcast for any amount of time, you know that I got my start actually in college accidentally getting thrown into the personal development world, which then led me into life coaching. And so I was really just trying to get myself together, trying to get self-disciplined in order to get back in school. I had had a full ride engineering scholarship that I lost trying to pursue this business. And so my grades were in the toilet, and I was, in a bunch of credit card debt. And so I needed to get all these different things together in my life. And I started to focus on that, and I started to blog. And so I didn't know anything about starting a business. I didn't know anything about marketing, but I knew how to tell my story, and I knew how to share these interesting stories that were happening to me on my journey to my personal success. So my blogging was never intended to be a business. It was never intended to be this life coaching practice. It was literally something that I created just to hold myself accountable. And my idea was, man, if I get these readers who don't know me, strangers who are reading my blog and reading my stories, maybe that will give me the extra accountability that I need in order to get my grades back up, get back in school, pay down this credit card debt, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how I got into storytelling online, at least. It wasn't for business. It was just for me to kind of cathartically, I guess, share what was going on in my life and hold myself accountable. And lo and behold, that storytelling started to help me build an audience. I didn't even realize that I was building an audience, but people started to come to me. They kept saying how inspired they were by the stories that I was sharing. And then they started to ask if I had any programs or what I was launching or was I hosting an event. And so it just made it that much easier to sell, even though I didn't have any other marketing skills and I didn't have any sales skills, but I had that skill of storytelling. So you want to make sure that you are mastering storytelling. If you master nothing else, master storytelling, because that is really going to set you apart, especially in this industry when everyone is trying to start an online business. Now, this next skill within marketing goes along with storytelling, and that is copywriting. And I debated whether to call it the technical term, which I chose, which is copywriting, or really just to call it persuasive writing, because that's really what I mean when I say copywriting. So copywriting can be a very technical, like, you write in order to get someone to take an action, whether it's purchase something or sign up for your email list or come to an event or book a phone call or whatever. Even when we are driving down the road and we see these billboards, the text that's on the billboard, typically, if it's, a smart business owner, they've generally hired a copywriter, unless they are a good copywriter themselves, to make sure that that text is as persuasive as possible in order to get you to pull off at the next exit and, go to their restaurant or call the number that's listed on the billboard or whatever, right? So it's this idea of persuasive writing. And so this was a natural kind of follow on to storytelling for me, because my initial content creation was blogging, right? I'm so old in this game that Instagram wasn't even a thing, right? There was Twitter, there was Facebook, and there was YouTube. And so those were all the platforms that I was on, but my main platform was actually my blog. Even before I had a podcast, I was a blogger. And so I was writing these blog posts, by hand. I mean, not literally by hand, but I was typing them out and, just again, sharing my stories. And so by doing that, I developed this muscle of being able to copywrite, that is to write persuasively. So yes, I was just sharing the story, but I wasn't just sharing the story. I was also talking about why I was so excited about this new product that I was coming up with, or how I thought it was going to help people because this particular process really helped me. And I was encouraging people to sign up even for my free things. I had a free 3-day challenge that was very popular that people joined, in part because of my copywriting and my ability to persuade and express myself in the written word. And so you want to get good at copywriting. You want to master this. I say in the beginning, because copywriting is actually expensive if you hire copywriters. And I know because I've hired copywriters before. And even to this day, I don't really work with copywriters because, one, I've mastered the skill myself. But even though I'm a big, person on delegating and, saving my time, I still find that it's very difficult to find people who can capture my voice the way I can. And so I've noticed that over the years, I've developed kind of this unique relationship with my audience. They really kind of like my voice, meaning the way that I write and how I communicate things. And that in and of itself, right, me being myself and sharing my unique writing style tends to be persuasive on its own. And it's just been very difficult. And I've tried, right? I've tried to delegate this, but it's very difficult to get someone who can just really master my voice that way. And so you'll find that this could be the case for you if you master the skill of copywriting. It's not always about the technicalities of it. Yes, there are specific words that you can use to stop someone on the page and to get them to click a button. But again, if you learn to write in your own voice, in a persuasive way, combined with that storytelling, you will find that it actually endears your audience to you and it makes them want to hear from you more. And so it just makes all the other marketing that you do, whether it's sending out emails or writing captions in your Instagram posts or your articles on LinkedIn or whatever it is that you are doing from a content creation standpoint, if you've mastered that copywriting, and again, not just from a technical, do you say these specific words, but again, can you write in your own voice in a persuasive way? If you've mastered that, you'll find that it's much easier for you to put things out there and for people to buy them because you've already endeared your audience to your voice. So again, copywriting is super important. You want to learn this as well as learning storytelling. You kind of want to learn how to do it at the same time. Practice your storytelling in the written form, right? In addition to being on video and sharing it on audio, but don't sleep on writing, right? Because contrary to popular belief, people do read still. So you want to make sure that you can write in that way. In part because if you aren't able to write persuasively at all, that's going to be a very expensive, contract or expense that you're going to have to hire in order to bring somebody into your business in order to do that for you. So if you can master it yourself, especially when you were just beginning, you'll save a lot of money and you'll earn a lot of money through the power of copywriting. All right, the next sub skill within marketing that I kind of already touched on is content creation. I got to put it out there because you wouldn't believe how many would-be entrepreneurs, would-be coaches, would-be consultants come to me and they're like, yeah, but do I have to make YouTube videos? Or do I have to post on Instagram? Or do I have to write LinkedIn articles? Or do I have to have a podcast? Or whatever. Listen, I'm not saying you have to have all of these things, but you do need to have something because it is like your megaphone. It is your apparatus for how you get your audience connected to what you do. Having a website with your services, ma'am, sir, is not enough for you to be able to actually sell those services. You want to be putting out consistent content that is engaging, that is helpful, that is packed with all of these interesting stories, right? That is persuasive. We talk about that copywriting, whatever form you choose to do. And so I often say that you want to choose the type of, content marketing strategy that does fit best with your personality, right? So for me, I love video and I love audio podcasts because one of my greatest strengths is communication. And I'm a good writer too, but writing takes a long time, right? So I like being able to just turn on my camera or just, turn on my microphone and be able to share my thoughts and be able to communicate in my strengths. So you want to think about what your strengths are, but whatever your strengths are, and also you want to think about which platforms does your audience really enjoy? Where are they? Find kind of the Venn diagram between those two sections, right? So what do you enjoy and what's your greatest communication strength and where does your audience like to play? Whatever is right there in the middle, you definitely want to start creating content because that is how you're going to attract your audience. I feel like I say this all the time, but for so many of us, we get suckered into believing that we can market our businesses the same way we see like these huge, billion-dollar multinational companies do, right? We're so used to being marketed in a mass market way that we end up trying to adopt mass market marketing tactics. And you can't do that, right? You don't have billions of dollars at your disposal. You don't have institutional investors who have all of this capital set aside for your business that allows you to, take out a news page ad. I was going to say news page, but do people even do that anymore? But those like mailers that you get in the mail and you throw away. I think I get them from like Target or Walmart or whatever, these different ads from the grocery store. Think about big companies who can afford to constantly bombard their customers with marketing messages that way. Or even big companies, think about a Coca-Cola or a GoDaddy who have no problem spending millions of dollars to run a Super Bowl ad, right? You are not those companies. So if you don't have this type of capital in order to do those big advertising campaigns in order to drive brand awareness and to get your audience to even know who you are, you have to do content creation. And yes, you can do content creation in your own way. I talk a lot on this channel, sorry but not sorry, about how I don't dance on TikTok. I don't like it for me, and it's not something that really is in alignment with my brand, shall we say. I don't mind it for anybody else. I see fun TikToks, and I'm like, well, wow, that's cool. If that matches your brand and that's what you want to do, then that's amazing. But I don't do it because I don't like it and I don't want to, right? And I don't think it's hurt my brand thus far. So I say that to say you don't have to do your content marketing the way you see everyone else doing it, especially if there are aspects of popular content marketing, trends that don't really feel in alignment with your brand, then don't do it. Like, be innovative innovative and come up with something that really works for you. But whatever it is that you do, you want to do content marketing, because how else are you going to get your brand seen? Again, you don't have billions of dollars in advertising funds. So leveraging social media, creating content, getting in front of people who are already actively searching for what you are providing, right? People come on YouTube and they're searching for coaching, right? And they find my videos, or people are on Instagram and they're looking for certain entrepreneurial hashtags and they find my posts. Like, you want to get in front of the stream of people who are already looking for what you have to offer. And the beautiful thing about social media is, for free, we're able to do that just simply by creating content. So we got to get out of our head, get out of this entitlement complex. Yes, it is an entitlement complex. It's not that. We should be able to start a business and just focus on the craft of whatever it is that we want to create or sell, and not have to worry ourselves with all this crazy content creation. No, you're a business owner. You're a marketer, right? You're the CEO, the CMO, right? The Chief Marketing Officer. You need to focus on creating content for your business. All right, the next sub-skill under marketing, which I don't know that it's a marketing skill per se, but again, we're talking about online business. So I just thought I'd throw it in here as an honorable mention because it is important. You do want to have a level of tech savviness, right? And I say this because this is something that you can develop. And I don't like how people put labels on themselves and they just say, oh, I'm not tech savvy. And they just allow their eyes to cross. You know, anytime there's anything online related to whatever, connecting some code or clicking a button. I mean, so many of the tools nowadays require no code, are very, very easy. It's drag and drop website builders. Like, there's really no reason to be scared of using these tools and these systems that are ultimately going to allow you to market your business. But I find that there's a lot of would-be entrepreneurs who aren't as successful as they can be because they just like, nope, I don't want to have anything to do with that. And they just tell themselves that they're not tech savvy. Listen to me. If you're truly like, you don't even know how to use a keyboard on a computer, like you're that tech unsavvy, yes, you can hire people in order to help you. And a lot of this stuff you can hire eventually, but so many people are failing to get their businesses off the ground because they don't yet have the capital in order to be able to hire for all of these roles, which makes sense because it would be a lot of money if you're hiring a content creator and a copywriter and, a back-end tech person. Like, you want to master some of these skills to the best of your ability, if for no other reason, just to get your business going so that you can get some sales in the door and then delegate the stuff that you're really, really not that good at. But I find that for the tech savviness, it's really a mindset that people tell themselves, I'm not tech savvy. And so they don't even try to dive into a lot of the tools and the technology that would really grow their business and make their lives easier. So particularly with marketing, yes, you're going to have to learn how to use social media platforms. You're going to have to learn how to use various tools. It's not that difficult. In fact, in my coaching program, my signature coaching program, the Next Big Name Bootcamp, we give you templates that are like basically done for you. We show you how to drag and drop and like put everything in there. So there are resources available for you to learn how to do that if you're really not tech savvy, but you want to make sure that you master that. And if you're interested in learning more about my program, you can click the links in the description box or in the show notes or wherever they are in order to apply. And once your application is approved, one of my enrollment coordinators will reach out to you and allow you to book a call where you can learn all about the program and hopefully sign up if it's a good fit for you. All right, so after marketing, the next skill that you will want to master is the skill of sales. And if you can't tell, I'm actually kind of doing this in order of the way that I've done it. Not completely, as you'll see from some of the other skills that you'll need to master. But for me, it was definitely mastering marketing and then mastering sales. And I say sales is separate because sales is truly the conversation around your product and kind of getting that person over the hurdle where they're saying, yes, I want to sign up for this. You can do all the marketing in the world, and trust me, I did, right? I was building my business while I had my full-time job, and I did a pretty good job, right? I grew my business to 6 figures. I made over $100,000 while I was still working my full-time job in my business because I focused on mastering these marketing skills. So I had a lot of people who were buying a lot of my, lower ticket products, but when it came to my actual one-on-one coaching programs that I was offering at the time and my group coaching programs, I found that the marketing wasn't enough, right? There was a sales component that I needed to master that I was just terrible at. And I couldn't sell my way out of a paper bag. Like, I was taking all of these calls. I had all of this interest, people wanting to sign up, and I'd get on the phone with people and they'd hem and haw and said they needed to think about it. And then inevitably they'd never signed up, right? Until I mastered sales. So I actually had to hire one of my first coaches, my own sales coach, to really teach me the process of sales. But I found that once I mastered this, the doors just like really opened, right? Sales is so powerful because you might find yourself in situations where your marketing is not present, but you can still sell if you know how to sell, right? I think about this when I was actually at my best friend's wedding and I was sitting next to someone who was complaining about their website and how they needed their website done. And while I'm not a website designer, because I mastered these marketing skills in the process of growing my own business, I knew that I needed some extra money, that I wanted to pour back into my business. I sold myself and offered my ability to create a website for this guy, and he paid me. He was like, oh my goodness, right? He didn't come through a funnel, right? He didn't find my Instagram. Like I was literally just sitting next to him at a wedding and we were just talking about his needs, and I was able to sell myself because I mastered this skill of sales. So this is really important. I even think of a CEO as really kind of like the chief selling officer to some degree, because you have to be able to sell. But speaking of CEO, beyond being able to sell just your products and your services, you'll find that you need to continuously master the skill of sales, because ultimately you need to sell your vision, right? And I found that even as my business has continued to grow and now I'm hiring new people and bringing on new partners and needing to collaborate, there's this idea that, wow, I have to sell like why we are in business. I have to sell, why we are doing what we're doing so that employees want to work with me, right? And contractors want to work with me, and, different strategic partners want to work with me. So it's not just selling of your product, it's ultimately selling of your vision. And so mastering sales, again, being able to communicate persuasively and making people want to take action based on how you were able to paint this vision for them is hugely important. All right, the next skill that you'll need to master is operations. And I find that so many online entrepreneurs really, really struggle with this because they are so focused just on the marketing and the sales piece. And I get it. Without marketing and sales, you don't have a business, right? Because you're not going to be making any money and you won't have any revenue coming in. But don't sleep on operations. Like, you need to make sure that everything is, ticking and tying as it should be behind the scenes. And so I don't want to say like, oh, I was good at operations, but I think because I'm an analytical thinker, again, I originally started in school in engineering and then later switched to marketing and then, did entrepreneurship. And I always say, you can take the girl out of engineering, but you can't take the engineer out of the girl. Very much so. I have this kind of like thing where I could be very creative on one side, but I can be very like, check all the dots and analytical and like setting up systems. So there is a part of me that kind of likes, setting up these systems in the background as much as I like creating the content and doing kind of the marketing and the sales piece. And I find that a lot of people, they don't like that systems operation piece. They find it uninteresting. They think it's boring. And again, you can hire this out, but when you're first getting started and the goal is to generate revenue, and you might not have the budget or the capital to invest in all these different people who are going to support you in all these different arenas, this is why it's so important that you master these things yourself. So when I talk about operations, I mean it from a variety of angles, right? There's the operations in terms of your sales operations, right? How does someone find out about what it is that you offer? How do they either book a call with you or sign up for a webinar or, get on your email list? Or what is the sales apparatus that gets them from, awareness to interest to ultimately becoming a client? What does that process look like? And is it consistent, right? Is it people are reaching out to you directly, or you have your phone number like plastered on a website somewhere and people are calling you, but because you're at work, sometimes you answer and sometimes you don't? Like, that's not a consistent system. So you want a system that is always going to be consistent. That way clients can consistently come in. But even beyond that, you'll want to have systems around your social media content or even just your content marketing in general. Is your content going out on a consistent basis? I feel like I harp on this a lot, right? Have you decided that you are going to post videos 3 days a week, or you are going to post on Instagram every single day? If that's the case, and that's what you've decided for your content marketing strategy, do you have systems in the background that make sure that that happens without fail, right? I do, right? I publish 3 days a week on YouTube, and we basically publish every day on Instagram. I'm able to do that in part because there are systems that we have set up in the background to make sure that that happens on a consistent basis. Also, you want to think about your operational systems in terms of the fulfillment of your products and services. And I know that this typically puts a lot of fear in the hearts of coaches because they're like, oh my goodness, I sold my first coaching program. Now what, right? Yes, they have the skills and they know how to coach the person, but they're like, well, how do I set this up? Is it 2 Zoom calls every week? Should I send them the contract first? Or do I wait? Or is it a payment plan? Well, do I send them an invoice? Should I auto bill them? Like, again, all of the operations around the actual fulfillment and delivery of the product or the service that you are providing, you want to make sure that you have those in place as well. So again, I get it. Most people are going to focus on sales and marketing because it's important to get that cash in the door. And oftentimes that cash in the door can then be reinvested in order to build out your operations. But even if you're not an operations person, like just doing enough just to get the business going and again, get cash coming in the door. And from there, you can start to invest in people who are true operations masters and can really make your business fly. All right, the next skill that you'll want to master that I don't find a lot of people talking about is actually the skill of finance, particularly financial tracking. And I wanted to talk about this on this podcast episode because in a lot of entrepreneurial conversations, people will talk about finance and they'll kind of like delegate it to like their accountant or their bookkeeper, right? It's like, oh yeah, you want to keep your books tidy, find a good bookkeeper, and then they're moving on. What I found, especially as my business has grown, is yes, I have an accountant and a bookkeeper who keeps my records tidy, like for taxes, and who does things the way that it needs to be reported. But the way the numbers and the categories are organized from a bookkeeping or like a tax perspective are going to be a lot different than how they need to be organized from a CEO perspective, right? Because you need to be looking at your numbers, your data in real time in order to make decisions about how you're going to invest in your business. Do you need to hire another person or not? Or should you let that contractor go because they're not actually providing the return on the investment that you thought you were going to get? Do you need to raise the prices of your product because you thought that it was, an adequate price, but then you're looking at the numbers and you're like, oh wow, like we don't have any margin. Like when it's all said and done, and after we, deliver the product, the cost of delivery is costing us almost as much as we are charging, and there's no margin there. And so we need to increase our prices, right? You can't make decisions like that if you are not daily tracking your finances, right? I don't want to scare you, but you need to be looking at your finances daily, right? This is how you do projections. You want to be looking at what is the revenue that is coming in, what are the expenses that are going out. And I find that a lot of entrepreneurs get in trouble, especially after they start making money and they're like, oh, I'm good, whatever. Well, they're leaving everything to their bookkeeper, and your bookkeeper is not going to give you your books. Like, at best, they will give it to you every 30 days, meaning if we are in November now, you will be having a conversation with your bookkeeper about October. But oftentimes they're like 2 months behind, right? So maybe you are having a conversation about September in November. 60 days have passed, right? That is like, there are so many different decisions that needed to have been made based on what is happening in real time that you didn't have an opportunity to do because you weren't personally looking and tracking your finances. So this is something that you'll want to keep in mind. Again, you'll want to master the skill of coming up with financial projections. And again, you don't have to do it perfect. Like, I have a spreadsheet that I use, and the categories are not correct from a bookkeeping standpoint. But again, I have a bookkeeper who does my books the right way. I label and categorize things based on how I need to see it in order to make decisions as the CEO, right? So I say this, understand that accounting and bookkeeping is going to be different than understanding, almost like wearing a CFO hat again. And so you can outsource this, right? And you can spend money hiring someone who's going to be your CFO, but that's going to cost a lot of money, right? Not against it, but it just might not be feasible for where you are right now in the beginning. And I find that a lot of entrepreneurs don't take this seriously, or they don't even know that this is something that they need to be looking at because everybody tells them when it comes to their finances, oh, pass that off to a bookkeeper and move on with your life. No, do have a bookkeeper in place who can do your books the right way, but you want to make sure that at best you are tracking the money that is coming in and the money that is going out. You're looking at that real time, right? So daily, weekly, and monthly, and you are making decisions of, do I need to run more ads? Do I need to scale back ads? Do I need to fire this person? Do I need to hire this person? Like, you need to be making those decisions in real time, because that will not only help with cash flow, but that will help with your ability to grow your business and to make those smart investments that are really going to help you stand apart in your industry. And really, at the end of the day, I feel like that goes into the last skill that you absolutely must master. And this is something that I've been spending so much time on because I'm like, wow, this is a thing. And that is leadership. Oh, leadership. I gotta be honest, I used to think leadership wasn't that hard, right? Or it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, I didn't understand why companies would literally spend tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars on leadership development, coaching, training, all these leadership development consultants coming in, charging these companies $300,000. I was like, why are they paying this money? This is a scam. No, it is not a scam. Leadership is hard, right? I believe that you can have some natural leadership abilities, but I think the vast majority of like the best leaders in the world had to learn leadership skills over time. And you don't want to wait until your business has grown. Maybe you've mastered these other skills and you have sales coming in the door and all this stuff is like going great on one hand, but you don't have any leadership skills and you're scared about how you can maintain this. In fact, I think a lot of imposter syndrome actually comes from feeling like they don't have the skills in order to be the leader that they know they need to be. And so even if you are a leader of one, right? Meaning you are a solo entrepreneur, you don't have anyone else working for you, you need to start mastering your leadership skills now because it will bleed into every other facet of your business and you will be so much ahead of the game. Even in terms of your marketing and sales, like marketing and sales is a form of leadership, right? You want to be a leader in terms of your industry, right? You want your business to be the category leader, right? Or you want to be a leader in sales. Start practicing those leadership skills now because the same skills that you might use as a leader in order to manage employees or, to show up confidently when negotiating or whatever are the same skills that you're going to use when you're showing up for your prospects, your audience, and your potential clients. So I cannot stress how important leadership is. The more you grow, the more money you make, the more people that join your team, the more important it is that you learn these skills. And yeah, these are the skills that you need to master that might not have anything to do with coaching, consulting, or even the products that you sell per se. But I find that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with really getting their businesses off the ground because they're not willing to do the hard work of mastering these skills. And when I say master these skills, I mean master them to the best of your ability. There might be some of these skills on this list that like you're never going to be the best at, right? Maybe you'll never be like the best financial tracker, but master it enough to get your business where it needs to be, where you're generating that revenue, and then you can go out and hire an outsourced CFO. Or if you're not really an operations person, master enough to where your business is humming and you can go out and hire that operations person, right? You can always bring in people, but when you're just getting started, it's very difficult to do that when you don't have revenue coming in. So mastering these skills is going to guarantee that you have revenue coming in, and then you can start to expand your team so that everything is not dependent on you and you have people who are supporting you in these various roles. So I hope that this was helpful for you. Again, if you want to master some of these skills, I invite you to join me in my signature coaching program. You can click the link below or in the description box or wherever you see it, whether you're watching or listening to this, in order to apply. And if accepted, you'll be invited to a call with my enrollment coordinators who will walk you through the entire program, and hopefully you'll join if it makes sense for you. So with that, thanks so much for watching / listening to this podcast episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.